Betsy, you're back on?
I am back on, sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay.
We thought you had gotten mad and left.
Well, I thought about it. You really annoy the crap out of me, Judy. Actually, Harper has a Zoom meeting at 7 as well, so we had to make sure that.
Had to switch computers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
Are these workshops available and open to the public just like the meetings are?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's listed on the internet, and there's a link to the meeting on the internet.
Okay, having been gone for a couple of seconds, we are in the process of looking at this, or we're.
No, we're waiting for you.
Okay, all right. So we're opening this meeting, and it seems like the sole purpose is to continue down the path of crafting our table of uses.
Right.
And you have in front of us.
Some of the other stuff I created for you to take a look at how I came about or working on this thing, and what the objective was, what I think our objective is for this table of uses. Creating a comprehensive list of uses allowed in each zone, which fosters residential, business, and industrial development, represents the direction of the town wants to take for for future development. So I probably need to reword that a little bit. I tried to put it into one sentence, like one vision kind of statement to see what what that looked like. I'm adding additional definitions to clarify the intent of the different uses in the table of uses. The restrictions are created to coordinate between the table of uses, coordinating the table of uses with the zoning ordinance and the municipal code. That way we have a reference where we could say, this is why we have those restrictions. They're not allowed in municipal code or whatever. Parking restrictions, that kind of stuff. I'm about to sneeze, so if I sneeze, I'll be back in a second. Table of uses, expanding that table of uses, so a variety of uses. Right now, there are only 27 different uses listed. We have on the table of uses about 300 of our lists, our uses on there. And one of my other goals was to eliminate conflicting data on the table of uses. In the zoning ordinance before this one, there were multiple uses that had almost the same use, but it was all messed up. But so we're trying to eliminate that, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far of eliminating all those conflicting uses. So the next thing are the list of the changes made that I made to the zoning ordinance. So the table of uses since then. So everywhere there is a yellow mark, if you can, oh, wait a minute. Did that come up? No, it didn't. I'm going to show you something else here. I got my spreadsheet up here. I'm working on it. Hang on a second. I got to get the right thing here. All right, here it is. So on the spreadsheet itself, everywhere I have a highlighted in yellow space is what I changed. So George, I changed that home occupation to another building, but I'm going to have to work on that a little bit because I was looking at it today or yesterday, and it didn't. Some of the other information on there isn't exactly correct, so I'm going to have to fix that up a little bit.
You mean the restriction verbiage?
Pardon? Yeah, the where you would have to have it in your primary residence and not in a.
That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah, there's other stuff in that little section that I have to fix up to make it work. So, I'll fix that, for next time. ATM machines were not permitted in the limited business, but we permitted them. So you can see what I've changed here in the use column, what we discussed last time. So each use that's highlighted has a spot where we changed something.
Are we diving into this right now?
Yes, if you want to talk about it, yeah.
Can you scroll back up to agriculture?
Yeah, I didn't really get into agriculture too much, though.
Well,
We actually didn't talk about agriculture last time.
I made some notes from a descending order. So
Okay.
starting at the top. Number 1, farming and central business.
Yep. Well, that's true.
You can't restrict it anywhere by state law.
Okay. Number 2, civic uses, which is right next to it.
Yep.
Office use in general. Here it is, general.
That needs to be by with a PR.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. These are all not that category. That's light business or limited business. It should be one over central business.
I got it. Oh, I got it. I see. I'm sorry, George. Yeah, it used to be the other way around. And then somebody changed it, George. I don't know who that was.
And then under financial use, all of those central business columns should be PRs.
Yeah, because they're office related, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that to keep it equal with retail and?
Right. So the restriction is 50% of office space, and actually Mindy's done I don't think the ATM machines has to have that though, George.
Probably not.
She's done an analysis of how much retail space, office space we have on the square. So,
Okay.
and I don't know if we can go into that.
Mail bond services.
Okay.
So those are going to be all PR?
Right, because the limitation,
Yeah.
the restriction is the 50% office space.
Okay.
That's the restriction on the square.
Okay.
And then manufacturing.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could add something that would be allowed in central business, a new category. This might be annoying as heck for me to say this, but I had in mind like a boutique manufacturer, like somebody who manufactures pottery or mugs, and part of their business is like retail in the front of the store, manufacturing in the back room. Their manufacturing doesn't take a lot of space, but it would involve a business that, at least in my opinion, would be attractive to have on the square.
Well, like the soap place in
Buff City.
Covington.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Would anybody have a objection to adding a category like that?
You
No,
can
I would
do
put
it,
a-
right.
Why wouldn't that be under just retail?
Because it's a manufacturer. I'm just going on the
It could
assumption.
go either way place, I think, George.
Right. So would somebody have a problem with them if they're like 51% of their income was derived from manufacturing and selling online or something like that, as opposed to the front of the shop sales? That's why I was.
Now you do have under retail, you have arts and crafts store,
Yeah. That's true.
art studio and gallery.
What's the definition of manufacturer?
Yeah.
That might help.
Good question.
I think making stuff.
What's the definition of boutique?
Makes sense.
It sounds like you're
Definition of
describing
retail.
Tennessee Pewter.
So you're saying that would be central business district?
Yeah, I think that would be. Does everybody agree?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Of course, it I guess should be allowed in all the business districts, I would think, except for maybe light business.
Yeah, I don't think it fits in light.
Right.
Well, but do we, when you throw manufacturing in there without some decent definitions, it seems to me that it has the potential to be, what if it's offensive manufacturing that creates lots of odors and different things?
I was going to suggest, Mr. Mayor, that I come up with some verbiage as a restriction to that. Like,
Yeah, I think so. I think manufacturing scares me when you say that. I mean, what if they're suddenly got an iron smelter in there and they're just manufacturing?
Well, could you handle it like you handle home businesses, where you list the things that we would approve of, and that if anybody comes up with something new, they just have to come and get approval and gets added to the list? Like, we know that a little pottery, they do produce like that. We know that someplace like Buff City soaps would be okay. There are probably a half dozen we know offhand would be okay.
I was thinking
And
like,
so the only way it's allowed is through a list. And that way somebody could slide in that,
Like we used to make framed art on the square,
yeah,
something like that,
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you did that, and
sell it.
Jim, you're the expert. Jump in here anytime you want to.
Well, as the expert, as the mayor says, I'm looking on Wikipedia right now for a good definition. Qualified to be an expert. But there's an interesting definition of boutique manufacturing, a method used for the custom production of certain products in limited quantities by hand or with a restricted level of automation. Products produced this way often include ceramics, furniture, boats, leather goods, watches, jewelry, among others. So that's not the exact definition I'd probably use, but it kind of gets in that direction. Limited quantities by hand or with restricted automation, I think is a key.
Yes, I think you're right.
and you probably want to throw in a clause in there that, nothing noxious or no noxious fumes or unwanted noise levels, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Unless of course somebody wanted to be a coffee roaster on the square.
Boy, that would be great.
How would you keep that monitored, on a yearly basis?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's something to go on there. And Jim, you can send me some kind of definition on that. That'd be great.
Okay, I'll send that over right now.
All right.
All right.
And I've got a list of pottery, framed art, ceramics, furniture, watches, jewelry, scented hand soaps, something like in that. And I don't know what else from there.
Glass blowing.
Glass blowing, yeah. We get a lot of those around here.
Well, who knows?
Now we do have boutique manufacturing retail.
Well, he just added that.
Oh, well, wow.
I'm adding this in real time, Judy.
That was quick. I looked up and saw it, and I thought, well, why are we talking about this? You're fast.
All right, building materials in central business.
We had that discussion last time. So is Farmers Hardware a building materials place?
No, it's a hardware store.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
To me, building materials is lumber and roofing and plywood.
Right.
And
Right.
I would be against that in central business. I don't know. Leave
I
it.
think, yeah, I agree with you.
All right.
Anybody else? Opinions?
I agree.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And by the same token, HVAC. Where did I see that?
Heating and no.
Yeah, heating and plumbing equipment. I don't think that should be in there either.
In central business?
Right.
Right.
I agree.
We must have been tired when we went through this part of the
We got towards the end, we were getting a little, a little
crunchy.
long in the tooth there.
Or whatever. And then warehouse,
Home improvement stores right back up there at heating and plumbing.
Home improvement stores here,
Yeah,
take it out of central business.
I would say yes.
Okay.
I found a warehouse and general, warehousing and general storage, but it's not allowed in general business. Why did I see that we changed that last time?
Well, we changed that last time. That was at the very end of the meeting last time.
Because what would you consider the storage unit that you rent for $70 a month or whatever? That's general.
So,
Usually it's an eyesore.
True.
Yeah, it is.
But it belongs in general business, right? As opposed to light business or central business. Certainly doesn't.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, okay, for example, Trinity Storage. Where is it right now? Because I don't have a zoning map. It's on.
probably in general business.
That's what I'm thinking. And is that not does anyone see that is, should or should not be in that area?
Well, maybe we need
So storage
maybe we need a
facilities is
highway
another
zone.
one. So the reason why I created that warehousing and general storage as a principal use was really for the square, protecting against someone purchasing a building on the square and using it as a warehouse.
Right.
That was my idea of that one when I created that category. There is a storage service down here, storage facilities in the service area down here that is permitted in general business, George.
And see the very last line of that category right there under services.
Yeah, it says the same thing. And then it says permitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
didn't get down that far.
Well, the storage facilities, now let's think about this. Do we want, well, again, I'm thinking along Highway 64. Do we want Highway 64 lined with storage buildings?
No. That's what Oakland's done, and it looks atrocious.
I mean, I'm almost thinking that we need some sort of Highway 64 overlay to some extent. Where,
that's what I was advocating for last week.
because, along Highway 64, that's going to be, that's always going to be the main entrance to town. And if we line it with used car places and storage sheds, I don't know if it's possible to make that attractive.
So we created we created a zoning map that we were going to show you. However, we can't have a meeting together. So that has a plastic overlay that Keith has created for us, which shows us different areas from when we were working on this 10 years ago with the state and when they were involved, and different circles on every intersection and all that kind of stuff highlighted. So we took the original zoning map, and then Keith has created a transparency that we can lay over top, and we can edit every time and put it back over and take a look at it, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Why can't you show it?
Well, because I don't have a picture of it. That's first of all. It's sitting on the table in the other room.
Well, but camera.
Yeah, it's off center now because I don't know, somebody looked like they were playing with it. But I will work on getting that overlay thing, that idea, Mayor, together. I don't have a problem working on that.
I think it's in my office.
Is it?
Yeah, if you want to try to show
it was on the conference room table.
Mayor, is it in there?
I don't know. I'll go look for it.
I don't think so. I don't remember seeing it. If it is, it's. I was in there the other day. There were a couple of maps up against the wall, but I didn't see what they were.
Well, let me go run in there real quick and look.
Are
for it.
you
I'll be right
not?
back.
Mayor, you had me fooled. I thought you were in the conference room with your picture.
No, that's a picture behind me.
I thought the same thing.
I did too.
Y'all never know where I will be when I'm at
Hey, it could
think
be
that-
one of those fake pictures too.
That's right. That's fabulous.
Yeah. You can make them look
Jim,
like you.
how do you handle that where you have 64? I mean, we've got coming into town from Memphis, we've got 6 miles of 4-lane Highway 64 from the courthouse to the city limits. How do we make sure that doesn't look like Summer Avenue in 20 years?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to show this monstrosity on the screen here. Hang on a second. Let me unshare this so I can see what my screen looks like. Okay, so here's the zoning map. Right, everybody can kind of see the zoning map. And then these overlays, we've got an overlay with the exact location that we can put over the map and show you different areas, and we can kind of fix this up. I don't know. It's hard for me to do it now, but we can just lay it in exactly the spot, and you can see the different areas that were pointed out before with the red dots and this area here. Can
Bob,
you see all that?
Bob, I'm just now back. What do they represent? I'm sorry. The
Well,
red dots.
it's the different zones that you're going to create. And I'm sorry, I can't read the little thing down there at the bottom. Let me get a couple of pieces of tape if I can take this thing on here. Because fighting with it really stinks. If I'm showing you my derriere, I'm sorry.
Ronnie, you create so many problems.
I was laughing, sorry. I'm immature.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put this in the right spot and tape it on there real quick. See, Mindy, you should have come to the office so you could have done to help me with this.
Yeah, well, this is way more fun.
I know, thank you. I didn't get it in exactly the right spot, but you can see that there's the map, right? This is the map, and then we can put overlays on that map as we change stuff, so you can kind of see what we're working on every week. And we bought some of this clear paper that we could use in a roll. This whatever this is, plastic stuff that we bought, and Keith can run off the
So what that
ideas as we go along.
That is the growth plan that was from years back. That's what
Yes.
we based that overlay on.
Yeah.
But
So
I think Ronnie, I think Mayor Neal, was referring to a legal instrument called an overlay that would restrict building in a particular zone.
you don't think he was
No,
referring
I'm just-
to an actual new zone?
Well, no, I'm just trying to figure out how do you keep along Highway 64. I know they have this problem in another city that I work with. It's fast turning into an automobile used car area, and they've talked about how do we limit. I mean, we don't necessarily want to change the zoning, but we don't want everything to be a used car lot. So how do you do that, Jim?
I think two things come to mind. One, would require some zoning stuff, but we talked before about instead of allowing business all the way up and down 64, especially when we get outside of downtown, to have nodes of commercial instead of strips of commercial.
Right.
Which is the sheer number of driveway accesses and businesses, kind of like a Highway 70 effect. But the other thing is goes along with design standards. So you kind of get a consistent front of where buildings are placed. How far back from the roadway, required landscaping. Do you allow metal buildings or not? And that kind of gets to the trick. If you have a business that wants to move in, and they're typically putting up a metal building with a gravel parking lot, do you say no? We need all brick wrapped around the entire thing, landscaping everywhere, and really raise the cost of that building. Do they come or not? That's kind of Yeah, but you know, you can make just about any kind of business look good. A lot, you can't hide the cars, obviously. Most other things, you know, if you have an elevated design standard, you know, you can get a consistent look and a higher quality look, so it doesn't look like a Highway 70 or a Summer Avenue going through Memphis, because that's just a hodgepodge of just old rundown buildings that, you know, the signage is bad, the buildings are bad, the parking areas are bad.
But they weren't when they were first built. You know, it's
Probably, but it was still kind of a hodgepodge. It wasn't really a consistent theme or anything.
right.
You know, signs kind of all over the place. Buildings not really with a consistent setback or anything.
Well, you know, there's another city that I go through a lot that out on their main highway. And I can remember, because I've been going there for my whole lifetime, I can remember when they first built all those metal buildings out there 25 years ago, it looked okay. But when you go through there today, it does not. And
I thought
think
we had,
that-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What?
I thought we had eliminated metal buildings in the code.
Well,
I thought
we had, well, through the design review, we've tried to improve what we can see from the highway.
But you can see we're not very effective at it when you look at what we just approved for the auto shop.
Yeah.
Well, that's not metal, is it?
It's not on the front, but
Right.
you can see the sides just as easily.
Yeah.
And it almost looks worse when they stretch the stone along the bottom and then stop it abruptly at the corners. It says, hey, we didn't have enough money to wrap this all the way around the sides or the care, you know.
Yeah. So what we're talking about two different things. I mean, they're both valid. One is, do we want it at all? And are we going to just want to price them out of it? But you've got to deal with the property owners who you're going to be taking from them by restricting them as well. And they're not going to like that. George, you had mentioned once about not wanting any commercial within how many feet of 60?
Yeah, like 300 feet.
Yeah. So what would happen in the 300 feet? What do you envision there? Just green space or something else?
I would, in my personal opinion, I would like to see a mixture of deciduous and coniferous trees and farming.
Yeah.
To, you know, something that sells Somerville as what it is. And
Yeah. But when you specifically look at Highway 64 coming in from the west, if you say that's what you want, you're going to have 300-foot fields of farming. I mean, is that going to be something that's going to actually happen?
Yeah, I see your point, but there's got to be maybe a way to, you know, okay, so it's, you either have a farmer's field or you have to put up a, let's say, 200-foot, what's it called? It's a curtain, like a green curtain or something like that, and then hide houses and manufacturing and, you know,
Like a hedge?
Yeah, but it's trees, not a hedge.
Okay.
I mean, is that going to be so restrictive that we don't have businesses wanting to come and purchase that land because they're going to have to purchase 200 additional feet off? I mean, that'd be my worry. I mean, we need sales tax revenue, and if, you know, we don't get it from that, then, but I agree with you. I want it to look really nice, and maybe we can be restrictive to what type of businesses can be there and what they need to look like to make it look nice without limiting, you know, businesses too much.
Well, but the whole point of of our targeted efforts last couple of years is we want to encourage businesses to move closer to the center of town instead of stretching up and down 64. So that was the idea. That would create an incentive for them to look for property closer to the town center. If I am explaining it correctly.
Well, this brings up something that I had wanted to address, Jim to address, and that is when we were looking at the table of uses the last time, it seemed like there were an awful lot of things that we had relegated into limited manufacturing or heavy manufacturing. And it represented what is much, there are many more uses than there are places. And I think then we said, well, then people will buy the land and then ask to have it rezoned. But when we look at what we're trying to do with planning, we're trying to look at the overview of the community and look where the infrastructure is and look for what would be aesthetically pleasing. And then we place where we think these things ought to be, and we get public input and reactions. And then we create a zoning map. And if we create this zoning map and say, this is where we want limited manufacturing, and then the next week someone comes in and buys something and then wants to change it to that, we're kind of defeating our zoning and the direction that we give the community, though I understand there's kind of got to be a fine balance between the two. Right now, there's no balance. If someone buys land and wants to change it to something, we pretty much always agree. Because we don't have a strong objection to it.
But if we go back and create a new land use map, or we were talking about before, a future land use plan, then we have something where we can go back and say, look, we really don't anticipate, we didn't really want to make that use in the future.
Yeah.
You have a way to say no without, saying no.
So you think if we were to go back and work on a new land use plan, one of the things we would do based on what we're doing with this usage that we're working on now is come up with more areas that would be limited manufacturing?
Well, yeah. Mindy?
Would it
TVA
help with
would love to help us
manufacturing?
with that.
It would
TVA would love to
absolutely help us. It would absolutely help us with manufacturing. But prior to doing that type of a map, we would need to do an industrial study and an industrial audit to find out where the pieces of property are most suitable for that. So, the industrial study or audit or whatever you want to call it, to me would dictate obviously where we would put industrial growth.
Yeah. And based on what we found at our annual retreat when we had TVA there, and they said, this ought to be in Judy's backyard.
Yeah.
Well, there are several other options too, but that is the one that they can take a look at the map of Somerville and Fayette County, and just off the top of their head, they see what the lay of the land basically. But there are other properties that they did not designate, but we could have studied. And, these companies basically go out and they look and see what industries are more likely to come to our location. What are the industries that would be interested in us? What do they cross over with that we currently have or that are close to us? What types of transportation do they need? Things like that. So, just because they said, oh, well, Judy's backyard's perfect, that doesn't mean that's the only property in Somerville that is good for industrial development. That just means that was the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. So as a priority, are we missing some opportunities because we don't have some other things lined up? Or do you think this is a priority, but it's not a high priority, or where
What,
does this
industrial development?
Well, with getting someone to review a little more detail, to look at our
Well,
map.
the industrial development, TVA, you know, just speaking on industrial development, TVA has recommended we need to have a site analysis. You know, we would need to go into study mode, and, you know, we would need to fill out some grants and things like that, but we would need to move forward with a study once that was completed. You know, industrial growth and residential growth, in my opinion, are going to drive the commercial growth. When you have people driving in and out of Somerville, that's what the commercial is going to be looking for. So those two items, and that, like I said, that's just my opinion. The residential growth and the industrial growth will grow everything else. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we really can't do a land use plan until we've had someone review this, because that's a big portion of our land use plan, is what areas are we wanting to move from agriculture or something. I mean, that has to come first.
But when I say they're related, that kind of study, I think, could be part of a comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
I think the comprehensive, it's more than just a land use map, you know, that then turns into a zoning map. I think the comprehensive plan is sort of the why document. Why are we doing certain things? What do we need? Like, you know, like how much manufacturing is appropriate for the town? And then, you know, pair that with, well, then where should it be? You know, we want to promote agricultural. Why do we want to promote agricultural? You know, you're building the arguments for what we need and what we should have in the future. And then out of that comes a general land use plan to kind of summarize all that. Another big part of that, there's a comprehensive plan, is, you know, goals and objectives. What are we trying to achieve? What do we want to become someday in the future? So then out of that comes a land use plan. It's kind of almost a small component of a comprehensive plan, but then it informs the zoning map. So the zoning map doesn't have a lot of explanation behind it, just a regulatory document that implements the comprehensive plan and the land use map. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. And it also not only will help with the industrial and everything that Jim said, was it will also help us know where to grow our utilities.
So what is the most requested, heavy manufacturing or light manufacturing? Like that's that right now.
Well, you know, in the state, I mean, it's kind of all over the place. We don't have a spec site. We don't have a site that, you know, we really can apply for those that are coming out, those requests for information or requests for, you know, we don't have that. So, I mean, we take a look at them, but they're kind of all over the place. They're heavy to light to, you know.
Well, the industrial study will help us identify the types of industry or whatever that would be interested in coming to Somerville. You know, they would take a look at our strengths and what we have and what they could sell to companies, and then come up with a place to put it. Find out where the sewer's running, the water running, the gas is running, the electric is running, and making sure that the site is ready for development. And that's the reason why they pick those sites, you know, next to Judy's house, that they're going to put a nice row of 3 scrawny trees right near her house so they can't see it. And you know, they're really looking at not heavy industrial, really. It's more like office building type, you know, maybe making printed circuit boards or something like that, but not a chemical factory or anything like that. I think the heaviest thing possibly would be like a pick suite or something like that would, since we have a lot of water, you know, we have cheap water here, that would be you know, something that might want to come in here. Just looking at, well, the Memphis contract packaging is expanding. So, you know, who knows what that's all going to bring to us in the near future. They're looking to expand. They've got a government contract to make hand sanitizer. So they're moving forward with a bunch of stuff. So You know, we have relatively inexpensive labor here, and we have inexpensive utilities, and you know that's attractive. The thing that is not attractive for us is we don't have a rail, and we're not that close to an interstate system, so trucking is more expensive here. So that's the trade-off. But,
Bob,
you know, what type of business would be interested in coming here? That's the thing.
Really great 45-degree middle of May day. And we're getting ready for summer, aren't we, George?
Bob, speaking of rail, since you mentioned it, I have 3 more points. If we could just get through those, then I'll shut up talking.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that?
Sounds great, George.
Shutting up sounds great. Contractor construction.
What's that in
Whatever it's in,
services?
probably. Yeah.
Contract construction services.
I notice you don't have that in the redevelopment district. Is that not what Mr. Morris's office is?
Mr. Morris's?
Morris.
Who's that? Morris Lumber?
No. The old bakery. The old.
The real estate license or the real estate agency?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a builder too, correct?
No.
Well, I don't know
Not
that he's
anymore.
actively building now. I know his son is.
Well, I'm just thinking. Okay.
Yeah, he's basically, that's a real estate office.
Okay.
Right.
That's neither here nor there to me. I just wondered if it was somebody was in violation of what could be. But anyway, so forget that.
No, he actually came to us for that use. I don't know if he's doing construction out of that business, out of that office or not, but the use that he came to us for was to put a real estate office in there.
I got you. Number 9, printing, copying is allowed in central business. I would like to not have printing and copying.
So you don't want Kinko's FedEx in the central business district?
Here's my deal. Central business, we all agree, I think, that what we want is retail. We want people popping in and out and buying stuff. And printing and copying is more of an office use. I mean, it's not something that's leisurely and fun. It's, you know, something you have to do. So it's not going to promote, it's not going to advance the exciting or relaxing or fun appearance of the square. So my point is maybe that should be a PR so that it's stuck on the side of office space instead of retail.
Okay.
If you see what I mean. Does anybody else agree with that opinion?
Yes.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then my last one, veterinary services does not square with retail at commercial and commercial. Blah, blah, blah. Veterinary services, you got it allowed here on central business. I mean, yeah, central business, but up in the uses above this. Veterinarian.
Oh.
Veterinarian with principal structure. And I think we had a discussion at one point about grandfathering out the veterinary business on the square. Did we not?
Yes.
So I think that ought to be eliminated on the central business category down in services.
Yeah, I thought we had said that we didn't want it in there, that as long as they're there, it's fine. But
So veterinary services, veterinarian, and veterinarian with the principal structure. I mean, that's a lot of veterinarians.
Right.
Sure is.
Do we need the services down there at all?
Well,
Veterinary services?
eliminate the whole thing?
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Don't you think, Mayor?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
It's gone.
I don't know why we have veterinarian versus veterinarian with principal structure. What?
I don't even know what that means. It's just something that came out of a zoning ordinance someplace.
we'll get rid of veterinarian with principal structure. If we don't know what it means, we really probably shouldn't have it in there.
You're probably right.
And then my last one is railroad terminals. This is why you said, and I said, speaking of that, Bob, you said we don't have rail, and then I happen to notice in, it's not represented in redevelopment district. And I'm thinking, what if in 20 or 30 or 40 years, rail becomes a deal? They've already got the railroad beds in place to go in and out of that area, correct?
They've all
Well, not really.
gone back
Not
to the
anymore.
landowners.
A lot of them have been given, a lot of that land has been given away.
I think you probably just need to take railroad terminals and yards completely out. Because I don't think that's not, I mean, if that's something that we're actually going to happen, we probably need to be in on that from the start, but I don't remember the last time anybody built a new railroad.
We'd probably have no say over that anyway, wouldn't we, Mayor?
And utility uses not previously listed is by appeal anyway.
Yeah.
So we could just,
All right, that's all the stuff I had. Thank you. Thank you for y'all's indulgence.
Well, how about services? Has everybody looked down the services? Is there anything we need to eliminate or change?
Well, I've got a question in manufacturing that I've just noticed. It says industrial light and industrial heavy. Do we define the difference there anywhere?
I don't think so.
So how do we distinguish between those two?
There were two individual types of, we actually used to have 3 manufacturing districts in the old zoning ordinance, and then the current one has the light and the heavy.
All right, but do we not have to define what those are
Sure.
some way? Jim, where are you?
Well, that might be helpful, but I think this table sort of defines what they are. What goes in light and what goes in heavy.
Yeah.
The list of uses is different. The heavier ones will be in heavy, obviously, and the others will not be in that one.
Well, but we have industrial light and industrial heavy listed as uses.
Yeah, this looks like, once again, saying industrial light is permitted in light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing, but industrial heavy is only permitted in heavy manufacturing.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, if it's going to be a use, then those should be clearly defined in the definitions.
I mean, I'm not sure why you have those listed there, to tell you the truth.
And it might be necessary, and unless it's a catch-all for anything that might not be specifically listed.
Right, but then don't we need to define it somewhere?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to define it either way, unless you just removed them and relied on the table itself.
Well, that's what I would think we would do.
Because you do have the manufacturing not previously listed.
Right.
And that's the catch-all.
Very nice.
I see.
Well, we can blow it away.
Blow them away.
They're gone.
Okay.
All right, again, we have personal care product manufacturing allowed in the general business.
That's Memphis Contract Packaging.
Yeah.
So I wanted to allow that type of use in general business because that's where we are.
I agree. But maybe it should be moved down to just like we did boutique manufacturing. Move it
We do.
into commercial. I mean, don't. I was just kind of making a joke, but maybe not.
So we have a place in our ordinance that allows for the combining of, it's a long list of stuff. And it basically boils down to personal care product manufacturing, hair shampoo, hand sanitizer, that kind of stuff, which is what they do at the Pomida building. And that's the only area that's not light manufacturing that they are in, which is general business, is that old Pomida building. So if we allowed it for them, we probably need to allow it for just about anybody, I would say. But
And that does bring people into town too, by it being there. And it's not an outdoor.
so how close are we getting?
It's looking good.
Mayor, do we want to put all those utilities in there?
Well, I don't know where I don't know why you would have sewer line in
Well, there's electric, gas, sewer, cell towers. It was all in the old zoning ordinance. It's in a lot of people's zoning ordinances, whether they allow communication lines or sewer lines or splice boxes or whatever.
well, I mean,
Just seems to me they're all public uses anyway, aren't they?
well, they are, and I don't know how what are you going to tell somebody they can put a building on a piece of property, but they can't run an electrical line to it?
Right.
Jim, is that normal to have all of that in there?
Yeah, this is a more thorough list than I'm used to seeing. But a lot of times you would have that. But you're right, you can't really limit what you're going to do. I think it's good for the big ones like the electrical substations and stuff, trying to have an idea of where you want those and where you don't want them. However, a public utility is sort of going to put them where they need to put them. So it's hard to restrict.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where you might have substations, like you say, but gas distribution lines. I mean,
Yeah, they're under the ground.
I know.
And sewer lines.
Sewer lines are in the ground, Some electrical lines are underground.
I mean, a pole transformer. If you're going to allow the pole, you're obviously going to allow the transformer.
The splice box.
To me, that just clutters things up. I mean, the substation might be good to have in there. Although I don't know if Chickasaw Electric says we have to have a substation within this area. I mean, are you really going to say, no, you've got to move it over here? And that doesn't work over there. We've got to have it here. So I don't know. I'll defer to our expert here.
Stormwater drainage sounds kind of funny to me in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this list could be shortened quite a bit.
Utilities not previously listed sounds like a real good catch-all.
Well, but I mean, we don't require Chickasaw to come in to get a building permit to build an electrical transmission line or to repair one or to, I don't know that you could. I mean,
You got to keep the town running.
yeah, I mean, obviously you'd like to, keep it in the proper places, but I don't know that I've ever known of the utility company having to come in and apply to put their transmission line down through there. Now, obviously on the big ones, I mean, you have TVA transmission lines, you obviously have lots of environmental rules you run into, but normally that's not so much local zoning. I guess it could be. So you might want to leave transmission, what is it, does it say a transmission line? Yeah, electric transmission lines, but then you've got them permitted everywhere. So if you're going to,
Yeah.
if you're going to put them in there and then permit them everywhere, why do you even have them in there?
Right.
I mean, I kind of think we might want electric transmission lines in there to keep TVA from deciding if they need to run a high-powered transmission line through the middle of the square. But they'd probably, TVA, they could condemn it and do it anyway. So who knows? I'll defer to our expert on all of those.
I'm just looking at some examples right now, and I see a listing for infrastructure, which is maybe a similar way to do it. But again, like you said, you're not going to limit infrastructure or try to restrict it from certain zones, because you have to provide it if you're going to allow something to go in somewhere. I mean, the only thing would be if there is some sort of private utility, not controlled by public utility. Make sure you knew where it's going to go. Like if you had a heavy industrial park, for example, and you had some major gas infrastructure or something, you wouldn't want that going through a residential neighborhood. But I think if you created the zoning district, you could, I mean, you know where you're going to have it, or we're going to.
So we want to knock out about 5, 6, 7 of those. Huh?
Probably at least that many.
Yeah,
Probably need 5 or 6, 7 left.
that sounds good to me. Yeah.
I'll work on that.
Okay.
What is rights of way to all modes of transportation?
Roads, I think.
Okay.
Well, so you don't need that. Now you've got in there, you've got telecommunication towers, but then up at the top, you've got something about
Cell towers.
cell towers. Can't you just get by with telecommunication towers?
You can.
I think we need to work on that section a whole lot.
Okay. And wholesale uses, do we even need those? Do they need to be someplace else?
Here's another hardware.
Well, that's wholesale hardware. What the difference is, I couldn't tell you.
I have an example of a wholesale hardware place. Anybody here know Bob Colley?
Yep.
Bob, he runs Active Bolt and Screw. You can't just walk in there to buy screws. I mean, you can, but he distributes to hardware stores. That would probably be an example of a wholesale hardware.
Does he manufacture there or just distribute?
Say again, Jim?
Does he manufacture anything there, or is he just a distribution?
He just distributes. They don't manufacture bolts and screws.
Okay.
All right, which brings up the point, do we have distribution in here anywhere?
Now, to be clear, Active Bolt and Screw is down on the Channel Drive in Memphis. And he's not in Fayette County, but that's
right. But most places like that, wouldn't they normally be in your manufacturing zones? If you're talking about a 30,000 square foot distribution center, I mean, you're going to have lots of big trucks. And wouldn't you want that?
His place is about 5,000 to 8,000 square feet. It's not very big.
Or 1 million square feet, like in Rossville.
Yeah.
And the point being that if you have a warehouse basically to distribute, and whether it's hardware or electrical goods or cooking equipment, it's really all the same thing. It's distribution. Whereas if they're manufacturing there, then it just goes into the manufacturing.
Excuse me.
So I'm not sure you need a wholesale.
I don't either, because we have warehousing and distribution under manufacturing uses. So if in the case of an 8,000 square foot screw distributor would have to, I guess you have to first decide just what is the classification of the business as to where it would go.
Sounds like warehouse and storage under, what was that?
We have warehouse and distribution under manufacturing uses.
Well, can I ask a question?
And we also have warehousing and general storage under retail and commercial.
That's how I would classify it.
I don't know that we need the wholesale uses at all.
Yeah, I thought about just eliminating them,
Fit
but
somewhere else, because do we really care whether it's retail or wholesale?
no.
If a wholesaler comes into Somerville, wouldn't they first get in touch with Mindy anyway?
Yeah.
And she could direct them? I mean, they don't just come in and rent a building if they're doing something like that, do they? Don't they come to the town?
I would hope so.
Ideally, they do.
Normally they will, because they'll want a handout of some kind.
Right. Right.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So I would say that could be eliminated and put just a generic in manufacturing or whatever.
Well, we've got warehousing and distribution under manufacturing, and we have warehousing and general storage as a principal use in retail. But that's only permitted in light and heavy industrial or heavy manufacturing. So do we even need both warehouse and general storage and warehouse and distribution?
Well, the warehouse and general storage is also permitted in general business.
Not where I'm looking. It's
Really?
not.
Am I looking at it all?
I think we took that out.
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the wrong one here.
I thought we just had a discussion on this. Didn't we just allow it in general business?
Storage facility.
Well, but general storage See, to me, when you say warehousing and general storage, I don't think of that as being a place where I go rent an 8x10.
A storage facility, on the other hand, is allowed in general business, which is under services, I guess. And that would be the 8x10
Yeah.
rental.
Can you scroll back up to these things we're talking about?
Sure.
And we were
Sorry,
just,
I got on my paper there.
There it is, warehouse, you just went past it. Warehouse and general storage as principal use.
We just talked about that, and we just added it back in, I
Exactly.
thought,
And I think that's.
because I had it taken out. No, that's in, yes. I have it in 2 places. There it is right there too, up here.
Right.
So one of them needs to go.
And one of them shows it permitted and one of them does not. In general.
Right. Well, I'm tending towards this one up here, leaving that one and getting rid of this one.
yeah, I do.
Getting
too.
rid of service and keeping it in retail?
Yes.
Which one? Okay,
Yes, keeping it in retail
getting rid of it,
And not in general business.
not in service.
and not in general business. Yes.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
All right, so you just got rid of what?
Warehousing and general storage in services, but I left warehousing and general services in retail because it's actually listed twice.
All right, it's also listed, warehousing and distribution is listed in manufacturing.
Right. Maybe that just needs to be distribution.
All right, so you have warehousing and general storage as a principal use permitted under retail,
retail.
and commercial, in
Yep.
light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, and then you have warehousing and distribution in manufacturing.
And that says general business.
Right.
We
Do
can
want
get
that
rid of the
in
general business. Do we need to get rid of the general business?
I say
Make
no.
them-
Well, see, I tend to think that we do. To me, warehousing and distribution, when I think of that, I think of 10 or 15 or 20,000 square feet, as opposed to what George was describing, which is 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, which is, to me, 2 different businesses. You know, when you got something 20,000 square feet, there's probably, if they're doing lots of business, there's going to be lots of trucks in and out of there, as opposed to something that's 5,000 square feet.
What's on the east side of Bull Market?
The east side of Bull Market is the old International Harvester place, but it's now become a trucking terminal, which I'm not sure is
Which would be distribution.
that
What is that?
permitted in that?
What is that zone? Is that
Uh,
not business?
That is zoned, I think, general business.
General
if I
business.
had to guess.
That's my point. We've got general business areas that could handle that stuff. Unless you want to rezone it to light industrial, I mean, light manufacturing.
George, are you saying that if it came in new, you'd be okay with it being there on 64?
Well, yes, and here's my point about that. I never even knew that place existed until I drove around the side of Bull Market because it was screened, or at least it seemed to be have been screened from my vision. I'm generally a pretty observant person, and I just don't think that when you consider, you know, maybe it needs to be PR. It doesn't need to be visible from 64, but we have so little light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing zoning available. It goes back to the chair lady's point about us running out of space for all the uses we're going to permit.
Well, I'm concerned about that, but I'm also concerned about having it on 64. You found that that one wasn't offensive because you didn't even notice it, but how would you create the verbiage so that the next one wouldn't be offensive?
Well, every commercial project has to come through design review.
Yeah, but you still have to have criteria. What would you just have it buffered or landscaped or blinded, or
Yeah.
that would be part of it? Okay.
Just how that ended up so far back off the road. Maybe they did it back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just one person's opinion. Don't. Everybody can disagree with me, and I'm not going to get hurt.
Well, again, do we want a truck terminal on Highway 64 across from, well, just down from a pretty nice area where all of Middlecroft Dentistry and all of that is.
Well, and even if that area that around the ballpark has some of that flavor anyway, if you allow it there, you're going to allow it going towards Oakland because that's general business too. And I'm not comfortable with having it there.
Maybe we need to redefine that zone as light manufacturing.
Maybe we do. We certainly need more in a defined light manufacturing, and that would be an appropriate place, in my opinion. But as everybody said, we probably need professional people before we commit to that.
Well, is the truck terminal permitted there under our current zoning?
In our current zoning?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really specifically say, Mayor. All it says is all their sales, service, and offices. And then under civic uses, it says all their civic uses. So all their civic uses is all by appeal. And if you consider that a sales or a service-oriented business, then it is a by right in general business.
I mean, do we really want a truck terminal in town on Highway 64? I mean, I would vote no. I think it's an eyesore. I mean, or on 64 in general. Drive past, see a bunch of trucks. I mean, that's not appealing to me.
I would love to see West 64 being like, Middlecoff and the farmers. Isn't that the farmers co-op down there? It looks so nice on the other side of town.
But we got to have a place to put them.
Well, and if they're behind business, if they're not located directly on the highway.
Oh, absolutely. That's the difference.
You have Tractor Supply there in the front, and then behind that, off of the main highway, to have truck terminal properly screened. I mean, that would be fine.
Right. That would.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
So how do you?
But not right on the highway, and that's why I was asking earlier about, is there some way to have some sort of overlay on the highway, still keep it the same zone, but have some sort of overlay that would prohibit certain types of businesses to front right on 64.
You do permitted with restrictions, and the restriction is, George is talking
and
about
maybe
200-300.
Maybe that's the way you do it rather than an overlay. Maybe you classify certain businesses and allow them only by under appeal so that you can make them screen properly or whatever. I don't know. I've got lots of questions. I have no answers, if you've noticed.
That makes it tough for the rest of us.
Well, why do you think I invited y'all to be on here? I thought y'all could solve all these problems for me.
Matt, this is up to you this week. You have to do it.
All on you, man.
You guys are in trouble if it's up to me.
I think we should definitely make sure we try to avoid having truck terminals, mobile home parks, and mobile home dealers, and outdoor storage, storage building dealers right on 64.
It's sounding more and more to me like we need a change of zone in 100-foot swath north and south, or an overlay. But I think just a plain old zone would be better, be more straightforward. You know, because I would move warehousing and distribution out of what category are we looking at right now?
Did we find the category?
Well, it's warehousing and distribution is under manufacturing uses and also under retail and commercial.
I'm not sure that I agree with your comment that it would be better to have a different zone for those areas so that we wouldn't have some of those intensive uses near the front, because then everything has to be rezoned depending on who buys the lot. Whereas if it's general business and it's acceptable, but it is with the restriction that if it is A, B, C, or D, it has to be 300 feet back or 250 feet back, it has to be blinded, and the other ones don't have the same restriction, then you don't have to keep changing the zones. You don't have to keep shopping for the right zone.
You're right. We can take care of a lot of what you're talking about through design review anyway.
Right, right.
So, maybe, yeah.
But we do need to get something that controls those uses that we want to allow and that need a place and that create income and sales revenue, but they do impact the visual, what we want on 64 for Somerville. So we really have to get a handle on that. We don't want more metal buildings. We don't want car dealerships that are offensive. And maybe we do percentages like we did about retail on the square on those, because they seem to, once you allow one, they seem to draw others. I don't know.
I'm not hearing much from Tim and Richard.
Well,
Oh, I agree completely with what Betsy just said. You know, we got to control the frontage.
yeah. I was thinking like you think in Arlington with Alcorn and Wright. You go through Arlington, it's not seen, but it's not close. It's not on the main drag, but it's kind of like off the road, unseenable. Maybe we could have a setback for manufacturers and industrial places like that, a setback off the road. I know it may be hard holding them from 64 legally, but maybe that could be something we put in the zone.
Yeah.
Like a setback, like, you know, like I was thinking of, like, what do you call it? Used to be Miss Smith in Moscow. It's setback, but you can see it. It's setback.
Have y'all driven down Appling Way there at Bellevue, where all those big companies have their, I know that would never be here, but those buildings are all beautiful. They're well landscaped. And it's a pleasure. I mean, it's very soothing even driving through there.
I think that was probably controlled by the covenants and the owners of the property more so than the zoning and the city. Because I think that wasn't that a bowl development in there.
It may be.
Yeah, just
So I think that was probably controlled through subdivision covenants would be my guess on that. But you're right. I mean, it's a beautiful area. You can drive through there and not even realize that there's 5-story buildings
Right.
over there. But I'm fairly sure that would have been controlled through the subdivision covenants.
Yeah, I actually work over there. There's a lot of berms and different things covering up buildings, and you gotta look really hard for them.
Is
Yeah.
that where you work?
One of the strategies they used was they have berms and curved roads that hide the driver's eyes from the buildings, and you just can't do that with 64 because of the easement width. You can't get the driver close enough to the side of the road to hide his view of the land.
Why not?
So then you have to rely on trees and shrubs, basically.
So they couldn't add a berm up there anywhere?
Not on 64. The health department wouldn't allow it.
Well, if it's set back enough, wouldn't they allow it then?
Further it's set back, the less your the angle of your eyes can be affected, because that was the strategy that I was talking about. They got the curved roads and the drivers close to the berms. So if you're 5 feet away from a berm that's 7 feet tall, you can't see over it. But if you're 50 feet away from a 7 foot tall berm, you can see a lot more.
Okay.
But I think you're right. I think the design review part and maybe beefing up the screening requirements, because if we had really anything that would fit in a general business zoning district, we can look at the zoning map, and it's actually separated pretty good. You have sort of nodes setting up of general business along 64. But one of the biggest distractions is the parking areas, right? I mean, if there's screening mechanisms, you could use a short wall with landscaping, you could have a berm with landscaping on top of it, and different things to try to screen the parking area. And then of course the building you could add through design review. So it's not just a plain old metal building, I'll add some elements to it to dress it up a little bit. Also parking lot islands. So you don't just have, 100 parking spaces, even with an auto dealer, all this one field of asphalt. If you were to break it up like every 8 to 10 spaces with a landscape island, all that sort of adds together when you're looking from the street. What you see when you look on the site, and it's far more pleasant than just having a bunch of cars that you look at right away. And that's not uncommon.
You could also require parking in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I will say my experience with that is on a highway like that, you're less likely, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that's more of a pedestrian oriented, when buildings can be really close to the road. But if you have like a 50 to 75 foot setback along a highway on 64, it's less effective that way. And businesses, they're going to be like, well, we want to have people see the parking lot a little bit at least. So for the highway, I probably recommend don't restrict parking to the back, allow in the front, but then screen it and have 3 or 4 different methods on how you could screen it to get some options on how to do that.
Yeah, because when they're on a highway where people are routinely driving 70 miles an hour, I don't know that you accomplish anything by holding the building up to the street and parking in the back.
But if the argument is that, and I've heard this from people that want to put their parking lot in the front, that they need people to see that they're in business and that they're successful. Right. And that's true. But then if you just said that we could create berms that blind so that maybe you can't not see the building, but you could not see the parking lot. Because the height of a car is a lot less than the height of a building.
Yeah.
So then you've hidden the parking lot anyway. So why do they care?
We've hidden it some, but not completely.
I think
Yeah,
the
when
intent
they-
is to soften it some, not to completely prevent you from seeing the cars. I think it, the landscaping and berming definitely softens it some. So you can still see the business is open, people are parked in there, but you don't have the harsh of just, some dead grass going up to a big lot of asphalt with cars everywhere. I think it's a little bit more pleasant look. And you can do a lot of that with landscaping.
It's almost 8:30.
Well, I think we've gotten a lot done, and we're reducing the number. And I think if Bob, you take care of all those utilities and get it down to a small number, that'd be great.
Yep, I'll take care of some of these things.
If you'd work with Jim on some of that stuff, and
Yes.
set it up, that'd be good.
Well, I think we may be through with that. Item 6, is there any other business?
Next week, not next week, 2 weeks, there will be a BZA meeting. I've already gotten a request for a use in a zone that's only by appeal, so that'll be coming up. I don't know if the design review that was originally scheduled for tonight will happen. She, across the street over here from City Hall, in that little building that used to have the boot place in it, used to have the donut shop in it. She needs to have something more than what she gave me in order for the design review to approve it. It needs more. It needs a site plan because it's, you're talking about zero lot line almost. So we have to know that what she wants to put on that side of that building is on her property. So anyway, I'm working with her to get ready. If she comes back to me in time, I don't know whether she will. That'll be on the agenda also.
Okay.
What's
All right.
proposed for that? What are we?
She wants to put a porch for outdoor eating on the side on her little concrete pad over there.
Right.
So it's not just a porch, it's got a covering on it and electricity on it and a ramp, and it's ADA compliant, and she's going to have dining out there, coffee, whatever.
And where is it?
So it's a 9-foot wide porch on the side of that building, and that piece of concrete looks 9 feet wide to me. So
Where is
I really think we need a site plan there to make sure that it's on the property. And
But that's not up to us.
But
Bob? Where is this?
I don't think that would be, we don't go out there and measure the property lines, do we? And we don't.
I just felt like it wasn't enough information to make a decision, but if you want me to bring it back at the next meeting, we can do that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
as the governing body that accepts plans for permits, we should be reviewing plans before we issue building permits.
Certainly.
To meet code and zoning requirements.
Well, it depends on what's permitted in that zone as far as that goes, it seems to me. But I don't know what she brought in, but.
What building is this, Bob?
I'll show you in just a second here. Hang on a second.
Okay.
It's the donut shop across from City Hall.
I'll show it. I have a picture of it ready to show you. Hang on a second.
While we're waiting, Tim, can you hear me?
I'm here.
Hey, do you do contractors financial reviews for the state?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Okay. So it's the Somerville Donut Shop, was the Somerville Donut Shop. It's right behind the eye clinic, right across the street from City Hall. She wants to put a 30-foot or a 35-foot long porch here, which starts right about just on this side of the downspout and goes back that way, and will be as those windows will be under the porch roof when she gets done with it.
Wow.
So it's going to be, I don't know how many feet above the ground, probably a foot or two above the ground. I don't know what that ramp looks like. I told her what she needed to do with the ramp. And it's 9 feet wide. So if you look at that little driveway there, that's probably hers. You're talking like very close. And I do have a picture. She did give me a drawing of it. If you want to see that, I could show you what it looks like. It'll just take me a second. She just hand drew it.
That would be a nice little area to do that in. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
What side of the building, so it'll be cool cooler in the summer.
She'll probably put fans in there.
That'd be nice.
Well, yeah. I'll show it to you. It's not the greatest drawing in the world, but you'll see it in just a second here, as soon as I get it up here. All right, that would be the front view. There'll be a gate, there'll be a porch. You see there's fans hanging down.
Yeah.
It's 9 feet wide, and you see how the window at the top is underneath the porch roof there.
Yeah.
And then this is what the side would look like.
Is
With poles.
Is she open for
And hopefully the fans look a little better than that.
Bob? Is she open for business right now?
No,
What does she serve, or what will she serve?
I don't know.
But it's going to be food, not donuts.
It's
Coffee.
at least going to be a coffee house.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then this is what the back would look like. Basically the same as the front, except there'd be a little grid here with plants growing on it.
That
So
will
that's
look great.
That's what it would look like. I think it would be nice.
Is she going to match the wood on the front of her door?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It looks like it from the drawing.
Yeah, it does.
That's the kind of thing we're supposed to be.
That should be a requirement because that would tie it in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it would have to come to the design review, I think. And this is what she gave me to bring to the design review commission. So, I guess she's having a guy build it for her that she knows. But that's what it looks like.
But Jim, would if it's 8 feet wide, I mean, is that within code and all of that?
I'm not sure about the building code, and I'm assuming it would be. I don't know of any restriction about how wide something would have to be, like a deck or a porch. But,
So 9 feet wide it is, and 33 feet long.
Yeah.
My concern was the front setback and the side setback to make sure that those are on her property.
Yeah.
And the ramp is on her property.
This is in central business, so there is no setback.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're not really
Well,
talking setback, you're talking.
I'm not talking setback, I'm basically talking property line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just want to make sure the whole thing is on her property.
So are you going to go out there and survey it?
I asked her to get a survey.
She needs to provide a survey.
I asked her to get a survey.
Well, you can look at the deed and see how many feet it should be.
But
Yeah, it's written.
you have to assess where the side wall of her building is in relation to the existing north property line.
So nobody seems to have a survey drawing of this property. I guess when they bought it, they didn't get a survey done. So there's a deed that writes it, is in writing, in words. I have no way to make a site plan out of that. I tried everything I could to do it myself. I tried to run it off on Google Maps and create a little site plan myself, but I couldn't figure it out. So I asked her to get a survey.
Perhaps she could use some design
don't-
services, Bob.
Well, I don't
Pardon
know
me?
that she has to.
Yes.
I don't
Well, I mean,
know that we need to require her to have a survey.
she has to have a site plan.
And I think the burden is on her to show us that it's not going to encroach on the neighbor's property during the permit review process. So whether or not it's a survey doesn't really matter, as long as if she can show, and we can help her like Bob's already been trying to do. But we don't want to approve, the city doesn't want to approve a site plan or an improvement that goes across the property line. That we'll get in trouble later.
Well, I wonder if the original plat of Somerville would be sufficient to give you the measurement of that lot without having her have the cost of a survey.
You know, Charles Haydad might have that.
It's not the question of the size of the lot, because what the question is where the north property line is in relation to the existing north side of the building. You have to find the building on the lot. That's the problem.
Right. So if you look at I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Hang on a second. If you look at that, it looks like it's all going to fit, right? Do
Yeah.
I know for sure that entire asphalted driveway is on her property? I don't.
Right.
I would assume that's where the property line ends, between the concrete and the asphalt. But I have no way of knowing that.
Now, there could be a chicken foot mark out there on the curb, and that would be a surveyor's quality marking.
Okay.
So, you could possibly find out. But regardless, she's going to have to supply a site plan at a minimum.
We can't really, I don't think we can have a site plan review or review the thing with the building inspector and not have a site plan.
Exactly. So if she supplies a site plan that shows the porch is within the building envelope, and it ends up not being, that's going to be on the inspector.
And if he doesn't have a surveyed site plan, a survey plat showing where that property line is, how's he supposed to know if it's on the property or not?
So we're going to require a survey anytime anybody builds anything. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. That is commonplace.
I don't think you need that there. I think you can pull the plat. Charles's office was an original lot of 66 feet deep. We know that. We know what the size of those original lots were, how much frontage they had. If the existing building she has takes up 24 feet of her 32 feet, then that's what she has left. I mean, you should be able to come up with that without the cost of a survey.
What does her deed say? Did she bring in a deed?
I have a written deed, I think. I think it's on an email. I didn't save it on the computer. It's on an email. I have to go look for it. But it was written, it's in typewritten deed, like, 5 feet from this spot and 3 feet from that spot and 12 feet from that spot. And, so I don't know how to figure all that out.
Well, but I don't want somebody to have to spend a lot of money for something that is not adding anything to the situation. I mean,
I just texted Sandy to see if Charles maybe had a survey of that building.
Well, see, that building would have been split off from that building up there in the front. That was,
yes,
I think, all one piece of property for a long time.
It was all
Charles
attached.
had that.
Yeah, but he had both, right? So
That was
he might
part
have
of his office. She hadn't answered yet.
Well, that's going to be something that's going to come at the next meeting. And
Yes.
It sure would add a lot to that.
yeah, I think that could be really cool.
Be very nice.
Okay. Well, is there any other business? I lost my spot. If there is no other business, I move that we're adjourned, barring any objections. Are there any objections?
I
Yeah.
object.
Oh, no.
Come on.
Mhm.
Are
All
there any
right, thank you, everybody.
rational objections?
I'll call you tomorrow,
night.
Jim. We can discuss some of this stuff, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, man. See everybody later.
You have a good night.
Bye.